Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this special edition of GMID Day here on Hospitality Today Live. And representing Canada today, well, we have Dr. Sylvain Charlebois is here today, and I hope I said that right today. But he is the Senior Director for Agri-Food Analytics Lab, which is the he's actually the Dean of the Facility of Management and Professor in Food Distribution and Policy in the faculties of Management and Agriculture at Dalhousie University in Halifax. And that was a mouthful, wasn't it? But I've got more to share with you about him. While supporting many organizations as a specialized advisor, he is one of the world's most cited scholars in food supply chain management and food value chains. He has authored 6, and I'm talking about 6 books on global food systems, and has, get this, appeared on BBC, NBC, ABC, Fox News, The Economist, The New York Times, The Boston Globe, The Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Foreign Affairs, and even more. So you know he knows a lot about the food distribution and policy. That's what he's an overall expert on. And if that's not enough, well, he's also the co-host of the Food Professor podcast. So here, the doctor is in the house to share what the hospitality industry needs to do in the food and beverage sector moving forward. So don't go away. We'll be right back here for this special GMID edition on Hospitality Today Live. Today, the official title sponsor for GMID is Efficient Health Solutions, your professional health insurance provider for the hospitality industry, efficienthealthsolutions.com. Well, here we are, finally get the opportunity after reading that amazing credentials that you have, Sylvain, and more. I'm wondering, how are you really known as the food professor?
Because people are having a hard time pronouncing my name.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. It's okay.
It's
I
beautiful,
mispronounce
though.
names myself. Yeah, I about 15 years ago, an MC couldn't pronounce my name, and before I went on stage, he told me, "I'll call you the food professor," and it
Ah,
stuck. That's basically how it happened.
that's beautiful. That's great. And yes, it fits you like a T as well, because of these credentials, and your expertise is so deep in the food distribution channel that it's amazing on what really people need to know, especially for the hospitality industry, where you've got meeting and event professionals that are not experts in the food and beverage area, but yet need to know. And this is where you actually come in. And I was so impressed knowing that you were an expert witness for testifying on several occasions before Parliament committees for food policy related issues. I mean, that had to have been really interesting.
Absolutely. So both Senate and Parliament. Actually, I testified last time just 2 weeks ago on fisheries and traceability. In hospitality, a lot of people are asking questions about where their food is coming from. They want to know the story behind the food, right?
Right.
And you need sound traceability systems to do that, to accomplish that, to give your customers the right story, a good story to sell along with the fish or beef or whatever you're selling. So, yeah, it's always a bit stressful. I'll be honest, because you're always bombarded with tough questions, but it's
Yes.
always a really great experience.
And it's always changing. right? Is
Absolutely, and they want to know what's happening. They want to know what's in the best interest of the public. From a policy perspective, as a scholar, you want to make sure that regulations are good for the industry. And of course, we don't want good regulation doesn't mean too many regulations because
right.
at some point sometimes governments can go a bit too far. And so I've always seen myself as an advocate for industry, believing that industry is often ahead of the game in terms of serving the public, doing the right thing. But once in a while, you want to have a checks because you want to make sure that the integrity of the industry is preserved.
And that's a very good point because again, our industry, we only know the surface of food and beverage. And yet I think, if especially when you've got suppliers like hotels, restaurants, explaining to their client, like you said, the story behind the matter or the issue or the situation might help them make better decisions too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we all know last couple of years it's been extremely difficult for the industry. The market has been anything but predictable,
Right.
in many jurisdictions it was about closing, reopening. We weren't sure exactly what kind of consumers were going to be walking into our a restaurant. With whom are we going to be dealing with? Are we dealing with a nervous consumer, a consumer that really is at ease with what's happening? It's been difficult, let's be honest, and frankly costly as well. Hopefully, moving forward, things will be a little bit more predictable, but that's the nature of business. You never know what the market will throw at you and what governments will throw at you as well. The pandemic was absolutely a huge blow to the hospitality industry. But now I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, which is great. Now it's time to focus on the post-COVID. I think from a strategy perspective, I think it's important to think about how the market will look like on the other side of the pandemic.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. And we brought up a very good area here about affordability. What's always on the minds of those that are planning an event or a meeting that has food and beverage involved is the budget. And of
Yeah.
course, they want to receive the champagne taste for the beer budget, of course. Is there and budgets are going to be tighter than ever before because of the pandemic really taking away those revenues. Are there any tips or advice that you would give to somebody that's planning an event or meeting that has to deal with this and has a tight budget? Is there something that they need to look at or ask questions to the chef, or is there anything that they can actually do to help that area?
That's a good question, especially in light of what's happening with food inflation these days.
Hmm.
So in America, the inflation rate right now is at 8.6%. In Canada, it's at 7.5%, and my expectation is that Canada will catch up to the U.S. at some point. And so it's very difficult to plan anything. I would say, as a manager, you want to know your costs, and costs are not the same as last month, and they're not going to be the same as next month. So if you're planning for an event in 2, 3 months from now, you want to make sure that you secure your prices and you know exactly what you're paying for. That's one thing. Secondly, manage your expectations or manage expectations. If you have a client, for example, you're planning for a client, you want to tell them things are volatile and unpredictable for two reasons. One, supply chain problems, making access very difficult. No matter where you are in North America, it's difficult to get anything. Anything. So you want to make sure that you manage expectations properly. And secondly, well, unfortunately, in light of what's happening in Europe right now with the Ukrainian conflict, commodity prices are way up. And so contracts are being renegotiated right now, and prices are actually being revisited. they're rising, and so you want to make sure that you secure your prices as soon as possible with your suppliers so you can move ahead and properly plan your budget. If you don't do that, especially uh, in light of how volatile things are right now, you can end up paying a lot more than expected.
Yeah. So the sooner the better, and lock it in as quickly as you can before, I mean, gas prices are changing every day. So
I can
food and
guarantee
beverage,
you right now, if you buy butter, flour, it doesn't matter what you buy, it is cheaper now than in 2 months from now.
unbelievable. That's sad to know that that's the expectation, but it's better to be prepared and get things done ahead of time. And we're planners, so there's no excuse.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
we work in the planning industry. So yeah, definitely, I think now's the time for the industry to really look at food and beverage differently than ever before. Not, something that they'll take care of later. They really need to, because it's a very important part of a meeting and event. That's why people come together, is
Yep.
because of the food and beverages. So great advice for
I'll
them.
give you an
And
example of
yes,
like lobster, for example, in some parts of Canada, and Canada actually has a lot of lobster. Lobster is sold at $25 a pound right now. $25 a pound. So if you're
wow,
organizing an event and your customer or you have a set budget, you're in trouble. So you
yeah,
want to you want to give yourself some options to edge against whatever you're planning to serve. If
good
if
point.
if I had if I was locked into lobster and I have to pay $25 a pound, I'd probably be looking for other options right now.
Right. And what do you think about people that attend these meetings and events, the audience, the attendees, and their cricket nannies, as far as maybe can't have shellfish, but, they're a vegan. And, how do people handle, special requests from attendees going to meetings and events?
You got to keep an open mind. I think if you talk to airline companies, if you talk to event managers, they'll tell you 25% of your clientele aren't necessarily won't will have preferences, whether it's because of health reasons or because of just personal preferences. I think what people appreciate these days is more customization. To be honest, they're expecting events, whether it's a convention or just a nice dinner somewhere, to be flexible. If you're coming in as a vegan, if you're coming in, you there are a variety of reasons why people make food choices. At the
Right.
end of the day, don't be judgmental. Listen to the crowd. Listen to the people you're serving. And frankly, when you think about food innovation, over the years, we've actually innovated because we were listening to a more fragmented food demand.
Ah,
A
okay.
fragmented food demand leads to more innovation. So I
Okay.
know that sometimes it can be seen as painful and perhaps even annoying to try to cater to everyone. But at the same time, I actually do believe that by listening to different groups, listening to different reasons, I guess, you tend to think differently about the market, and that leads to more innovation. The non-gluten movement, really, whether or not people actually need non-gluten or not, it has led to better products. Non-gluten products 10 years ago were not edible. They
Right.
were just
Right.
awful.
Yeah, they're awful.
Now
Ugh.
today, they're much better because we did listen and we wanted to serve them better.
Oh, that's a very good point. The
Yeah.
opportunity was there to improve it, and the audience or the people attending those meetings events actually pushed them into new innovation, and that's very cool. Yeah, I've seen that difference, and because of it, I've been more open to eating gluten or being,
Oh, really?
oh yeah, yeah, they're good. It's good. So
It's better,
it's
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So because of that, though, what are the trends out there? You travel the world, and you try so many different cultures and customs as far as food choices. Anything out there that the industry has not tried, the hospitality industry has not tried before that maybe they should? What are the trends like?
Uh, well, actually, the world hasn't traveled last couple of years.
Well, that's
So,
true.
and frankly, because of prices and because of inflation, I actually think a lot of people will be stuck home for a while. So you want to think about that. I'm thinking from a macroeconomic perspective, you are going to be looking at a client base that hasn't traveled all that much. They may not be able to afford to travel that much over the next little while. So why don't you use food to allow them to travel mentally for a while? I honestly think that before COVID, most of us were traveling quite a bit.
Right.
I mean, when I started my career as a teacher 25 years ago and asked my students how many actually have passports, I think it was about 10% at the
Oh.
undergraduate level who
Hmm.
had a passport. Today, the majority of undergrads actually would have a passport. So
Sure.
people have traveled a lot, but things have changed the last 2 years. And I think it would be a good thing to allow people to think freely for a while through a meal, through an event, by internationalizing whatever you're doing. Essentially, I think, and of course, the other issue is fear. I mean, let's face it, a lot of people are exiting the pandemic being fearful of others. I actually just attended a conference last week in Tampa Bay. I was speaker at a fertilizer event. Woo! Fun. But they gave us a choice of bracelets:
Uh-huh.
green, yellow, and red.
Okay.
Green, in for hugs, high fives. Red, be
Oh.
careful. And red, don't come near me.
Oh.
I thought that was
Nice.
interesting,
A
you know?
nonverbal communication way of letting people know
I
how they
picked the
want to
green.
be approached. Oh,
That's right. I picked the green because I'm
okay.
French. I like hugs and high
Yeah.
fives, so no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
But I
Great
do
idea.
respect people who, came out of the pandemic being concerned about their health. And I
Sure.
saw a few people with red bands, and we were good to go. We kept our distances while
Right.
talking about business. So
Right.
that's kind of the things that I'm expecting really over the next little while.
Okay, that makes sense, and maybe even wearing bands for food choices. Who knows?
Who
But that
knows?
makes a lot of sense. So, as far as food choices, the industry has been introduced to marijuana and cannabis. They're starting to use it in like the butters, and the beers, and for receptions and things like that. Do you see this coming into our menus more often, especially in the hospitality industry, or is there a concern? What's the trend with that area of the food chain?
I do actually. I do think there's potential more so in the U.S. than in Canada, even though in Canada federally cannabis is legal. In Canada, I would argue that it is legal, but from a edible perspective, there are so many restrictions. It's very difficult for manufacturers, restaurant operators to do anything really. But in the U.S., and I've been in the U.S. for a while now, there's more. I think there are more options, and I actually do see great potential in seeing some cannabinoids entering the market in a meaningful way. And I'm thinking mainly about CBD. CBD is the non-psychoactive element in cannabis. It doesn't make you high, but therapeutically, it has shown to be good for joints, for example, for mental health, for to pe- make to make people feel at ease and things like that. CBD is getting a lot of traction these days. Now THC, that's a different story. I think THC. I'm not sure it's THC is going to be quite popular in social settings because it will make you high, and not everyone is comfortable trying THC. If you don't know how your body reacts to THC, you're likely to stay away from it, especially if you're with other people that you barely know. But CBD, I actually do see potential for sure.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting to hear you say that because I know there's foods out there that are have already been introduced to all of these, and it's just going to be interesting when somebody's been given a dessert like a brownie or a cookie or a pretzel with these items in it, and how they're going to react to the rest of their experience at a meeting, a convention, or some kind of event. You wonder if it's going to make them very relaxed and enjoy themselves, or is it going to make them sleepy, or is it going to pertain to their personal use, like you mentioned?
Yeah, no, exactly. So the regulatory regime in the U.S. is much more flexible. In Canada, the big difference between Canada and the U.S. is that if you actually infuse butter or a pretzel or a muffin with cannabis, it is considered by law as a drug, not a
Oh,
food product,
okay.
as a drug. So
Oh,
it would
okay.
be so the FDA would actually oversee it. In Canada, it would be Health Canada. So that's
Interesting.
why there are so many restrictions when it comes to edibles. But in the US, I've actually seen way more openness, and I've been actually talking to some colleagues right here at USF about that, and the regime is quite different. So I do see
Interesting.
more potential in the US than in Canada, to be honest. In fact, actually, I would see Canadian-based companies looking at the American market in as a potential target for growth.
Right. Well, then that's a good point too, because if it's going to be different in Canada, it's going to be different in the US, it's going to be different in Europe, it's going to be different in Mexico, then the client, the decision maker needs to know these policies. They need to know what the issues are going to be if they're going to be holding an event or meeting in those countries, and probably even different if you're on a cruise, going through
Absolutely.
international waters. You really have to know what they need to apply, and help make that decision if that's going to even work for their meeting or event. Where do they find out that type of resource besides you, that can help them educate themselves? Is there a certification for food policies or anything like that they need to know about?
Most trade organizations have actually looked into this, and they do support their industry quite well. In fact, I've actually participated myself in many events, and those events were well organized, very instructive for companies to become more knowledgeable about cannabis in general. Uh, the bottom line, I think, is that as the cannabis market matures, I think more people will see that eating cannabis is actually more natural than smoking it. The body was never intended to smoke drugs. It's actually bad for you. But eating drugs is much more natural and less damaging for you. And people, if they want to try cannabis, edibles are likely going to have way more potential as the market matures. That's
Interesting.
my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of new menus coming out for the conference convention level because of the pandemic. Is there anything that the industry can look forward to that, menu wise, not policy wise, but menu wise? Is there anything new food wise coming on board that are new menus of any sort that would be popular?
That's a good question. So coming out of the pandemic, I actually think that local, this whole issue of local, is
Yes.
getting a lot of attention.
Okay.
I see it in Florida. I see it everywhere in Canada. I think more people are interested in supporting local,
Okay.
even though it means something different to everyone.
Right.
I get it, but
Right.
still, I think people are looking to support local farmers. And the other thing I've noticed, Deborah, is that people are more interested in supply chains. It may
Okay.
sound ridiculous, but
Hmm.
the empty shelves and the panic buying
Right,
and
right.
discussions I've had with a lot of people had to do with the obscure part of the food industry, the part we don't see, the
Yeah,
logistics,
yeah,
the
yeah.
warehousing, the transportation, the
Right,
truckers, all
right.
this that stuff. People actually want to know more, and
Huh.
they have a better understanding of the role of processing, the role of farmers,
Okay.
and they want their food choices to mean something from a supply chain perspective.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, so
Interesting. Very
I would say that the supply chain is actually more democratic than it used to.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. That's going to be very educational for everybody to embrace because yeah, I think it's something very important to everyone and to know the backstory, like you said too. So let's talk sustainability. Sustainability is becoming bigger and bigger in the hospitality industry, and I want to know how does that apply to the food chain and how that would work in the industry as well.
That's a good question. I think that we're just ending an era of I wouldn't say greenwashing, but overlooking performance metrics, if you will. A lot of companies have come out making statements over the years saying that we'll become carbon neutral. This we'll recycle that. I mean, a lot of companies were have been very aggressive promoting their position around the
Right,
environment, and
right,
like who's against protecting the environment? Really, like everyone cares about the environment. But I think that more and more people will be looking for specific performance metrics. Okay, so
okay,
you've committed to become a green company. You've committed to become carbon neutral by 2030. Where are the goods? Where's the proof? Where's the proof in the pudding? And
good
how can
point.
we know for sure that you're actually doing what you promise to do? And I think again, going back to how knowledgeable people are about the supply chain, they'll understand, okay, you're a processor, you're a restaurant, you're a hotel. Okay, perfect. So this is where you fit in. And this is how you deal with your suppliers. This is how you deal with your customers. So what's going on? What's the story? We want
Sure.
numbers.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. Wow. Well, this has been an unbelievably interesting conversation because I really believe that the hospitality industry has not set them up enough to learn and understand the food distribution and the policies behind it. It's always been about the menu, but I think they would have more clout and more leg to stand on if they understood, like you said, the backstory. So thank you very much for that information. Is there anything else that you'd like to offer wisdom wise to the hospitality industry that, I mean, gosh, I've learned so
I,
much here already. Is there anything that you suggest they do right now to get prepared for
I would
those?
say I would say this. I mean, this pandemic, as awful as it's been, I think has provided tremendous opportunities to the industry. I actually think that rules that did apply before the pandemic no longer applies. And going
Right,
back to my comment about
right,
a democratic supply chain, it means really that your role, whatever you're doing as a business, there are new opportunities out there because the consumer is connecting with businesses very differently now. Whether that person has decided to stay home or has decided to travel or is working remotely or at home, depending, the workforce will look very different. And because of that, how you serve your market will have to change, but it
right,
could actually mean tremendous potential for growth as well. And so connecting online, connecting in public, physically, and I'm talking about dark stores, dark kitchens. I mean, those are things that we heard about before the pandemic, but now it's exploding. Like
wow,
every company is looking at different things right now. So I'm pretty
hmm,
pumped by what I'm seeing right now. Despite the inflation story, which I know is a problem, I get it, and the labor issues that we're facing, I understand. the way we can connect with customers has completely changed, and we should take advantage of that.
Oh, good analogy there. That's brilliant. And again, this has just been an unbelievably interesting conversation. You need to be more involved in the hospitality industry side of things, because
Hey.
we could use that education above and beyond. And what better person to share that with us is Dr. Charlebois,
The
the
food
food
professor.
professor.
There you go.
Right, exactly.
Say it,
Exactly.
say it.
Exactly. So I know there's going to be people that are going to be so wanting to stay in touch with you and maybe even further this conversation. And so I'm going to put up your email and your website. Is there any other way that people can reach out to you?
Yeah, you can basically email me or go to our website. All of our research is posted in both English and French. Or you can find me on Twitter at Food Professor.
Oh,
Very
love that.
easy. Or LinkedIn, of course. Again, Food Professor. There you
Oh,
go.
I love that. I love that. Well, and that is so true with your credentials. There's no doubt that everybody really can utilize your knowledge and your expertise. And we appreciate all that you do to bring this information to our industry. There's no doubt. So I'm hoping everybody out there, the viewers, definitely contact the food professor, because you will learn a lot just in this short period of time. I know I have. So thank you again. Appreciate it. Happy GMID Day. And we will see you around. So thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Take care.
You bet.